Glossers. We are demystifying perimenopause, busting myths, and getting our mojo back today. My guest today is a certified integrative health practitioner who founded Holistic Nutrition Lifestyle to help women better understand and manage the symptoms of perimenopause. As she entered this transitional phase herself, she quickly discovered a lack of clear, accessible information about the profound changes women experience during this time of their lives. My guest has been in the perimenopause trenches herself and turned her struggle into a blueprint for other women. Please welcome to Now What, Dyna Vink. Woo!
Hey, hey, Melissa, great to be here. Thanks for having me.
Oh, I am so excited that you reached out because this is obviously a very hot topic and a very frustrating topic because as we spoke about and as I was doing research, there's either a lack of information or
Mm.
there's misinformation. And it's so frustrating. And we're going to get into this. And even, I know you mentioned that even like they don't even, and I hope this is changing, but in medical school, it's not a top topic.
It's not even on the agenda. No, it's not part of the learning curriculum. No, in well, 80% of students that go through med school. Yeah. If they're lucky, they have a 1 hour, scattered conversation about it in their entire med school career. So, yeah.
I mean, that's tragic in and of itself, and there could be many reasons for that. You know, the big joke is
Yeah.
if men have issues with their their penises, like there'd be a full committee, and
Yeah.
this wouldn't be the issue. Do you think that's changing?
Well, I think there were some positive changes made, but I think under the current administration, all the research has been halted. So I think, there was certainly an understanding that the whole area of women's health in general had been undervalued.
Yeah,
And medical testing, for example, was, especially intended to include women because they're not just small men. And
right.
yeah, they have a different response to things, what with different hormones and et cetera. But I think there's, there remains a very large gap in the research and certainly in the knowledge base of how women function and react to things. And of course, a lot of the research stems from pharmaceuticals. And
Mhm.
there's a lot going on that doesn't need to involve pharmaceuticals. So, this is not an illness. This is right.
Right,
So,
right. This is not an illness. That is such an interesting point. Well, we will do our part. We will focus on what we can control and get this message out there loud
excellent.
and clear. So, what was your aha moment that made you realize perimenopause needed a whole new conversation?
Well, I think it came in a couple of steps. First of all, it was when I realized that I was actually in it. I
Right.
had 5 or 6, completely different symptoms that I did not connect. And so the first aha moment was, wow, even my doctor didn't mention this, and so that was the first aha moment. And then, the next aha moment was after all the experts that I consulted, my doctor, my nutritionist, my trainer, that none of them were providing advice that helped. In fact, most of it was detrimental. It hindered how I felt in my progress. So, that was another aha moment when I thought, okay, I need to do something about this for myself. I need to dive into the research. I need to figure out what's going on here because I can't be the only one with this
No.
problem. This must be, fairly widespread. And it was only later that I found out that between 75 and 80% of women do struggle with symptoms. So,
What were your first symptoms? Do you remember?
Well, the first symptom was, I guess, indigestion and
Okay.
gas. And then I had weight gain, and then I started having brain fog.
So it's interesting, the indigestion and gas. That is the first time I've heard of that. So that's really interesting. I'm glad you brought that up because yes, I think we've a lot of us heard of the brain fog, the
Mm.
weight gain, but the indigestion and gas to connect those dots
Mm,
is really
yeah.
interesting.
Well, the change in hormone affects your
Sure.
gut microbiome, right? And so,
Absolutely.
when you think of it like that, it's makes perfect sense. But for me at the time, I just didn't understand what was going on. And of course, the doctors were trying to treat symptom by symptom, and it wasn't really getting any result.
Well, and
So,
that I think is one of a huge issue with our medical system is, at least in the United States, we treat the symptoms, not
mm,
the root cause
exactly.
of the issue. And I
Yeah.
mean, we could digress, and I think a lot of that is the pharmaceutical
Yep.
influence. Take this pill
Yep.
to get through this. And I'm not anti-doctors, anti-medical, but um you do have to take control of your own health also.
Yeah.
Do
Yeah.
you remember a piece of bogus advice that a doctor or coach gave you?
Oh, yeah. So my doctor scolded me for 10, I had gained almost 10 pounds, and this was part of what my complaint. I'm not doing anything different. And
Right.
then she, and then she gives me this outdated paper with a diet on it, and it includes all these, processed foods. And it was these big muffins, you have a muffin for breakfast, just a muffin. And I said, if I ate what you've got on this sheet here, it was the low fat and the high carb kind of combo with a lot of processed foods. And I just looked at that and I said, well, I know that if I eat this diet, I'll gain 10 pounds in a month. Right. I mean,
Absolutely.
this is absolutely not what I can tolerate. And she looked at me like I was from Mars. And then I said, well, I'm becoming my whole body is changing and I'm insulin resistant. And she said, what? What is that? I don't know what that is. And I thought, okay, we, here we are.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to start educating my doctor about,
Right.
of course, anything with nutrition in traditional health is kind of off the table. They really don't have a very good understanding of nutrition. So that was another aha moment was, okay, I'm not going to get any help from you. And
Mm-hmm.
so it was
Mm-hmm.
onward from there. And that's when I started my journey is to figure things out for myself.
I just interviewed, so I'm a nutrition and fitness coach myself, and I just interviewed a fellow colleague too. And we talked about nutrition and how, um, they need to be teaching this in schools.
Yeah.
Starting kindergarten, what's a healthy snack? What makes your brain function?
Yeah.
You need carbs. You need
Yeah.
carbs, but it's the right,
Yeah.
it's the
The
not
right
processed.
kind.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it absolutely starts with the gut.
Yeah.
Well, okay, speaking of gut, why don't we just go in there now? In your research, well, so when, actually, let me back up for a second. So, okay, you start doing this research. So then when do you decide, okay, I'm going to start my own business because I cannot be alone in being confused, frustrated. How did that evolve?
Well, I was pretty much through perimenopause by then. It was 13 years, so it was quite
Right.
a long time. And I had exited the corporate world and I was looking for a business that I could do on my own. And, I was thinking, well, I was in marketing communications, strategic planning, that kind of thing. And I thought, oh, I could do that. But, I did that for a bit, but it wasn't very rewarding. You end
Mm-hmm.
up with sorts of little pieces of projects and not the sort of meaty, fun stuff.
Sure.
And so then I thought, well, what can I do where my age isn't a problem? Where my age is actually working for me. And so
Yeah.
then I thought, well, I sure had a hard time at this perimenopause. This is, this is the time to, change, do a pivot, from what I call it corporate work, and start looking in the health sector because women are badly underserved.
Yes.
And so that's what I did. I started out with this blueprint, and it involved lifestyle approaches, and that was really significant. And then it was a little later when I discovered functional medicine testing, and I thought, holy smokes, add these two pieces together, and now you've got something that you can really work with, instead of just guessing, oh, it could be this or this, right? Because a symptom
Mhm.
could be indicative of a couple of different things. And if you've got a test that can say, oh, it's this, then you can dive right in and you can address that without messing around.
So for those who
So
don't know, can you give some examples of what functional medical testing is? What does that entail?
yeah, so functional medicine tests are done in the home, so they're very convenient. So they're self-tests, and then they get sent away to the lab. And they involve a couple of different tests. So there can be saliva tests, which is fantastic for cortisol and determining what your cortisol levels are throughout the day. Great
Hmm.
information.
And cortisol is
Um,
your stress-bearing hormone, and the higher
that's right.
cortisol, also it holds on to fat. So
Yeah.
I would say to a little side, I'd say to my teenagers, "You're making me fat. You're stressing me out. My cortisol is through the roof." It was gone.
Yeah, well, cortisol should be higher in the morning, right? That's the normal pattern, and then it sort of goes down over the day. But with a lot of women in perimenopause, it's the opposite.
Mm.
And it starts out low, it goes high and then of course you can't sleep properly. So this is part of the sleep issue. But anyway, so
Which
there's
sleep is
saliva.
huge. Sorry, little side
Yeah,
note. Sleep affects everything,
everything.
you guys. We are so, and especially our teenagers, they are so sleep deprived, and it is so important. I never realized until about the
Mm,
last 10 years when I started doing some research on this how vital
mm,
sleep and good sleep is
yeah.
to your overall health. Okay, so continue. So is sleep test one of the functional tests you do as well?
So things like cortisol will indicate whether you can get good sleep, right? So
Yep.
that's one of the highlights. And then the lifestyle piece behind it is where the sleep is, right? So that you have good sleep hygiene and that kind of thing. Yeah, so there's saliva tests, there are blood spot tests, which are, not drawn blood, but just dots on a paper. There's urine tests and hair tests for heavy metals, etc.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then there's a stool test if you want to, if you're concerned about parasites, especially that's, the best one, but you can still pick up parasites in the oat test. So the organic acid test.
Okay, so let's go there. Let's talk parasites. So the first time, because we had talked, it's not talked about at all, really.
No,
I
no.
mean, and not my circle. The first time I actually learned about parasites was this was a year, probably 10 years ago. I went down to Palm Springs to some, holistic cleanse retreat. Okay, and we did daily if you're eating, people out there, if you're eating, you may need to pause just for this next little segment. But we would do daily colonics, and that's where they taught us about parasites and looking for parasites. But does everyone have parasites? Give us a refresher, a parasite 101. Because they're not
Yeah.
all, are they all bad? I can't remember.
Yeah, parasites are all bad.
Oh,
It's
they're all bad.
bacteria.
Okay.
Yeah, so bacteria is good and bad bacteria, right? So
Right.
that's and so there's always bad bacteria, and that's but the good bacteria outnumber them, and or should
Right.
if things are going well. But parasites, they're not good, and so they come in a couple of forms. There's the sort of single cell microbe organisms like Giardia, which is commonly in water. So if the water's not
Mm.
filtered or whatever, that can pop up. And
And that's when you get
worms.
like you can get violently ill,
Oh yeah.
right? Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
And then worms. So different types of worms like pinworms and roundworms and tapeworms, right? So there's several different types of worms. So um, it's very quite common. So in America, it would be between about 12 and 20% of people have them,
So
and
what
no
are the
one's really taught.
symptoms? How would one know that you have parasites?
Yeah, well, and it's subtle. It's pretty subtle. So, um, the most obvious ones would be digestive problems, right? So that's the kind of most obvious one. But there are a lot of other areas that are really surprising, and you say, how can this possibly be parasites? But there would be sleep disorders. So things like grinding teeth and restlessness and waking up, exhausted even after you've slept for, 8, 9 hours. So there's one. There's
My
skin
doctor just asked me
problems.
if I wake up exhausted, and I just said, yes, I do. So now I'm
Yeah.
thinking, oh, maybe I have a parasite. Okay, continue.
Yeah, it's well, possible. And then there's skin issues, so that'd be rashes and adult acne and itching, that kind of thing, which is a problem. There can be muscle pain and joint pain, which doesn't go away with usual treatment. It just sort of persists. Of course, there's the digestive issues. So there are a
Like
number of different
bloating
health.
and what type of digestive is like extreme? I heard extreme bloating. Uh,
Yeah, you can have diarrhea.
okay.
Yeah, so those can be unpleasant. And then there's recurring yeast infections, and that was something that I had. It wasn't a parasite, but it's an example of how you have symptoms that could be attributed, and in fact, most of the time, these symptoms are attributed to other things, without thinking about parasites as being a possible underlying cause.
Do you have an opinion on colonics, like going to a facility and where they do the full on machine and the water?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, they're great, but they're not fully effective for eliminating parasites, put it that way. So one of the things that parasites are very clever at doing, and well, they take advantage of your body's natural tendency to protect, is there's a biofilm that gets created within your body that protects the parasites from the rest of the body. So the
Oh,
parasites go about their business, and they excrete their waste product and everything all behind this biofilm, and that shields them, and it's like a partial solution to keeping them away from the rest of your body's activity,
right.
but they're still active, and so these colonics typically don't address that. Antibiotics do not get through the biofilm.
So how do you
So
so how do you treat them?
well, and the traditional treatment is antibiotics, right? In traditional medicine. So what that will do is it'll clean out everything that's easily accessible, but usually they only give you 4 days of antibiotics.
Right.
Well, if you think about it, the lifetime of a larva is a couple of weeks. So it may get rid of the adult parasites, but it certainly won't get rid of the of any larva. And it doesn't get rid of anything that's behind these biofilms. What it does get rid of is all the good bacteria that's in
Right.
your gut.
Right. And antibiotics are prescribed like gum
Yeah, yeah,
in this country.
yeah. So, this raises a number of challenges with the traditional way of dealing with parasites, because then you have this whole repair system you have to do, and you still aren't past the gate, right? I mean, it's still
Right.
likely that you will have a repeat occurrence of the problem because you have not addressed it completely. So that's a
So how
challenge.
so how do you treat them then?
Well, with the Integrative Health Practitioner Network, we've got a product which is based on Ayurvedic herbs, And what we do is it's kind of a three-step process. First of all, we disrupt all that harmful biofilm that's protecting a lot of the parasites. Then we remove it with a second Ayurvedic herb mix, and
Okay.
then ultimately we flush it all out with a binder. And so it's
Okay.
that three step. So the removal is done using natural products like wormwood and black walnut hulls.
So someone can do this at home. So let's say I am like, oh my gosh, Dinah, I think I might have parasites. I call you up, we chat, and then do you give me a protocol of what to do at home?
Well, I would give you a protocol, and it comes in a box like like this.
Okay. You have a full, okay. Okay, so she's showing me it's a para
It's called
support detox protocol. Got, disrupt, remove, bind. Okay.
Yes. So that's a product that you take over 6 to 8 weeks, and you have that 1, 2, process. Usually it's best to start with a detox that specifically opens the liver elimination pathways, because that can get clogged up with a number of things, like if there have been pharmaceuticals in the past, processed foods, alcohol, whatever, it can clog up the liver. So having the elimination pathways clear to get rid of the parasites is probably the best way to start out. But yeah, so it does take a little bit more time, but it does
Right.
deal with the problem, right? As opposed to the alternative.
So, what is the feedback from clients? Like, what's the success story that you can share of a client that they called you up, they said, I'm having these symptoms, and then do they just go, like, do they go away quickly? Is it one of those things that happens over time?
Well,
Obviously,
with
everyone's different.
parasites, of course, but with parasites, sometimes it's you can tell without doing the testing that there's likely going to be parasites there from the
Okay.
symptoms. And if that's the case, then I would just recommend that they take that. And over a period of, within the first 3 weeks, they can notice a big difference. And it's like better sleep, better energy, less intestinal distress, skin clears up, so all these things happen pretty quickly. When the results come from the functional medicine testing, then there can be some big surprises there, right? So there may be a
Right.
combination of things going on. There may be hormonal imbalances that are happening. There could be a leaky gut indication. If your gut has been permeated by one of these parasites, then some of that toxin and undigested food can go into your bloodstream, and that can cause a lot of inflammation, right? So inflammation, of course,
Yes.
is a lot of things. So yeah, so you know it's it's easy to see how people can not understand that these are connected, right? That they have these
Yes.
parasites, and they're responsible for some of these obscure symptoms like grinding teeth. Like, huh? Okay, that's a big one. But what happens
I
is
grind
that
my teeth. Like you're saying these things, and my mind is starting to spin. I'm like I wear a mouth guard at night.
uh-huh. See, and that's a symptom. You're dealing with symptoms there, right?
Yeah.
As
Oh,
a
yeah, exactly. A mouth guard, so to protect my teeth.
Yeah,
Yes. Yes.
yeah, yeah,
But right, not the root cause. Okay, so
yeah.
just to simplify this for everyone, so um you think you might be going in perimenopause or you're in it or it doesn't even matter, right? You're just having symptoms, you don't feel good. So it sounds like the first step is to contact you and in via intake form, I assume, or then you
Right.
go through, okay, I suggest maybe we do this test or this the saliva versus the hair, and then it's just a
Yeah.
matter
Yeah.
of figuring out the puzzle.
Yeah. And of course, with the testing, it can be a very precise identification of where these imbalances are. And
Yes,
then by putting things back in balance, you're dealing with that root cause, right? So it's not like you're just dealing with symptoms. And
yes.
so that's an important distinction. But of course, it does take a certain amount of determination, right? Because people that are used to, and most people are used to the traditional medical system, then they're given a magic pill, and you take a magic pill and you don't do anything else, right? So all you have to do is remember to take the pill and
Right,
and
right.
and that's the extent of your treatment. Whereas with with the health coaching that I do, there are some lifestyle approaches, right? So there may be some changes to the foods that you eat. There may be some changes to the activity level and the type of activity that you do. So particularly with women, it's weight bearing exercise, right? That's so important to avoid osteoporosis and just to help metabolize everything, right? So there are some changes that could happen, and people have to be willing to do that, right? They have to
Dinah,
be.
you bring up such an excellent point, and it drives me nuts because I'm actually training for a fitness competition, and I have never. So I've been into weight training for a few years, but not this intently. And the myth that women lifting weights were going to get big, we're going to be bulky. And I always say, do you know how hard I am working to get a little bit of a shelf on my tush? Like women, pick up the weights. I
Yeah.
promise you, you will not turn into the Incredible Hulk
No.
after 3 days a week. I am working so hard just to gain a little muscle. Like, and it is true because I was raised in the cardio, beat your body down, beat your body down, beat your body down, and it is so one of the messages I'm definitely trying to get out there when I work with my clients also is weight training,
Mm.
osteoporosis. We lose starting at like age 30, we lose percentage of bone mass and muscle tissue every year.
Every year, yeah.
Every year. And that's why when you get older and you fall, you need a hip replacement because your foundation is not strong enough.
Yeah.
So you're so right in bringing that up. And again, I wish and I'm hoping it's changing that there's like a meme going around that doctors, before prescribing a pill, should prescribe a nutrition plan and workout plan,
Mm.
right?
Yes.
But it's just, I don't know. Maybe we're gonna help change the world. Okay, so this is also fascinating. I could talk to you forever about this. Um, now what? Now what for women in or about to enter perimenopause or they're in it? What is your number one piece of advice for women feeling lost right now? Because it is such an overwhelming, complicated time. What is one thing that women can do to start taking action to feeling better?
Well, probably the easiest thing is to think about food as medicine. And so it means a few changes, but it's basically to remove the inflammatory foods from your diet, right? To choose not to have those, and to look at whole food eating. And yeah, there's so much brain fog can diminish, joint pain can go away, energy can be restored. There's so much that can happen. That's sort of the first thing that you can do, and um, you know that involves dairy, it involves wheat, it involves alcohol.
Mhm.
Caffeine can become a real challenge for women in perimenopause. I know myself, I used to be a coffee aficionado. I was
Mm-hmm.
very, very particular about my coffee, and now I can't even drink it. So I'm back to, decaf. And that's fine. I mean, I enjoy that, but for, it was a decision. It was very
Right.
intentional to do that. And it
Right.
uh it paid off in being able to sleep at night. So I think for women, looking at your diet from a different perspective is probably a good place to start. And if you start noticing differences, then you say, okay, you're onto something. And then there are more steps. There are more things that can be done.
Yes. Yes. And last but not least, you brought up a very, very good point when we first spoke that I want to make sure this message gets out. You said perimenopause symptoms can linger
Yes.
after menopause. That was the
Yes.
first time I've heard that. So can you talk about that
Yeah, it's
statement?
one of those myths, right? Where you first of
Yes.
all, perimenopause is pretty hazy, but then you think, oh, when I get to menopause, all this will change.
Yes.
But sadly, that's not always the case. I'd say about half of women carry symptoms over with them into menopause. And just to clarify, menopause is when you haven't had a period for a full year. So just,
Yeah, no,
so
absolutely.
yeah, and so when you're in post menopause, you would think that okay, hormones have reached some sort of stasis, but no, they might have reached a stasis, and it's not a good one, right?
Yes.
And
Yes.
and particularly sleep is one of the things that can be a problem going forward, and then other things like losing strength, and that affects mobility, right? So there are a lot of these symptoms that can happen that can carry on. Heart, right? Women have well, estrogen is a big protector, and it protects women's hearts. And so when the estrogen drops low, the heart is one of the biggest casualties, put it that way. And that's why women start getting heart attacks, into their late 40s and 50s, whereas they hardly have any heart attacks before that. So there are a lot of these symptoms that carry on beyond menopause, and so in fact, about half of the women that I work with are in menopause and aren't
Hmm.
satisfied with how they feel, and are convinced that they're not living their best life. So
Right.
yeah, so that's certainly, as far as expectations go, it's, I think, good to know that all this may not end with menopause. So some symptoms probably will end, but others could persist.
Yeah, I think that's just a really good point to know is don't throw in the towel. It's gonna be okay, but they may linger. It's just knowledge is power. Quick
Yeah.
random question. What are your thoughts on HRT? You brought up estrogen, and it kind of seems like the wild, wild west out there. Do you have any opinion on, all this HRT therapy with testosterone pellets, estrogen patches?
Well, it's there's a lot of research that shows that bone density and heart health are improved by taking HRT. So I'm certainly not against it, but I can't prescribe it, obviously. I'm
Yeah.
not a medical doctor. And I can also say that a lot of medical doctors are not very good at prescribing. So, if women do want to take HRT, I'd say that's great, but taking the patches, the epidermal patches, is far better than the pills because of the way that it's absorbed through your skin. It's a lot
Absorption.
easier on the liver, and it's better absorbed. So that would certainly be the recommendation for that. So that's body identical as opposed to synthetic.
Gotcha.
Uh, yeah, and so yeah, but for a lot of women, taking HRT doesn't solve all the problems, right? They still end
Right.
up getting all these inflammation related problems. And for some, sleep is still an issue. Others are, HRT takes care of sleep, but there are still these issues. And there's also libido, which won't be addressed unless there's testosterone involved, right? So testosterone can be very helpful for energy, for focus, and also for
Yeah.
libido, which tends to drop. So yeah, so I have no problem with those uh, with those drugs. But a lot of women can handle, by going and I'll call it an alternative route, they can manage without it. So that's a personal decision.
Right, exactly. And again, I think the message is go back, start simple, look at what you're eating. Food,
That's
look at what
that's
you're eating.
that's the first step, I'd say.
Yeah,
And yeah, yeah.
yeah. Well, Dinah, oh my gosh, this has been fascinating. How can people, if they, I'm sure now everyone is super curious, I am, if they have parasites through their body. Um, what is the best way to reach out to you and connect with you to work with you?
Yeah, well, I offer a free discovery call to see if women are a good candidate for functional medicine testing. So I invite women to connect with me, and I think you have a link you can put in the show notes for that.
Absolutely.
So yeah, that would be the best place to start.
Okay, wonderful. Well, thank you so much. I so enjoyed speaking with you, and we'll get the information out. And yeah, I'm just thinking about parasites swimming in my body and grinding my teeth. So
There, there's help for you, yes.
there's hope for me. My God, I'm like, add it to the list. My Lord. Anyways,
Uh,
thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
okay.
Okay,
Lovely
take
to
care.
have to be here. Bye, Melissa.
Bye bye.